Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's lesson. Today, we are going to look at the last lesson in summary writing, part 3. I'm Mrs. Swart, and I'll be taking you through the lesson. But today's lesson isn't just simply about what you as a learner need to know. It is also about some tips that you know what to do to make sure you get the maximum marks. Remember, we already looked at this and we said that one of the things you are to do is to change a word here and there to be able to get your maximum number of points. You can also use pronouns instead of nouns. So instead of saying the man, you say he. You can write using active and passive voice, depending on which one the passage is in, but only if you know how to use it and how to use it correctly. Please follow your instructions. That is the most important thing. When you get your topic, when you see what the topic is, you read your instructions of what it is you have to do. You are allowed to use more facts or mention more facts within the number of words allowed, as just to make sure that if you've repeated something that you still get to the 7 facts. But remember this, only 7 facts will be credited. So in other words, only 7 facts will be awarded marks. There are no bonus marks for additional facts, but it does help you if you have repeated anything. Please remember as well, we do not use quotation marks because we are, even if you lift directly, don't use quotation marks. It won't make the matter any better. You have to summarize in 60 words. You have to give 7 points. And you have to give it in point form. And your topic here is to describe the UFO. I shared the passage with your teachers and hopefully they gave you copies to do. Otherwise, you can try this at home later on and maybe just have your teacher have a look to see if you manage to get it right. Remember, read the instructions very carefully before you start your summary. Then you underline and number all the relevant facts. And you're going to write your summary from margin to margin. You will have 2 margins to make sure that you stay within the margins. And then you have the right-hand margin to write your number of words down. Now, this is our passage. You will notice that the underlining of facts only starts in the 2nd paragraph. It starts with this thing was huge. He had never seen anything like it in his life. And then it tells us, 2nd point, the UFO was shaped like an arrowhead. Then the 3rd point tells us that it was about 2 stories high. And the 4th point, and it was about 3 times as long. We know its surface was dotted with dim lights. That's point 5. Point 6, there were 3 bright lights on the tail. And then we see that that point has been repeated. So you might have numbered it, the next one, number 7, where they speak of the 3 taillights. But in fact, that's exactly the same fact that you've given there. So it means that you're repeating the fact. And that's why it's so important to look for more facts. Because if you stop there, then you only have supplied us with 6 facts. And then in the last paragraph, it says to us that when this thing flew over this Jimmy Johnson's head, he noticed something, that it had at least 2 rows of windows. And fact number 9, it had red lights along its metal underbelly. Now, to make this a little easier for you, what I have done, is I've taken everything that was underlined and written it in complete sentences. It has to be complete sentences. You can't just give me keywords and think, oh, well, that's good enough. It's not for the marker to try and figure out what you mean. The marker has to allocate marks on what makes sense. So if you haven't written full sentences, then it's your own fault if you don't get the marks. You must make sure you do the best. You must treat the marker as if he or she is totally ignorant, as if he knows nothing. And you have to make sure that when they take the memo and mark, they can see that you understood what this was about. So let's look at this. Remember, we had 60 words that we could use. Now, the first one, this thing was huge. What are we doing there? We're just lifting, and we're allowed to lift. You can get 7 out of 10 if you've lifted. It, the UFO, was shaped like an arrowhead and there's lines drawn through everything that's not necessary. Point 3, it was almost, instead of saying about, we've changed the word and we've replaced it with another one so that it can award us not just the mark for the fact, but also the mark for the language or the bonus mark. It was 3 times as long, and we've added there as it was high. Because what are you saying when you say it was 3 times as long? As long as what? So remember that when you're looking to get your full marks. Its surface was dotted with dim lights. We change it to the surface. There were 3 bright lights on the tail. There we have, it had 3 taillights. It had at least 2 rows of windows. There were red lights along its metal underbelly. So you see how easily we get to have our number of words and have them correct. It's actually amazing how easily we can do this. You just have to look at what your topic is and make sure you address your topic. Now, this is just to give you an idea of what happens with the marking. What if I quote verbatim? You've all heard about quoting verbatim. Very simply, what verbatim is that you're quoting a portion word for word from the text. So what we want to do is make sure that we don't quote it word for word, that we change something within the quote or just make a little difference by using our pronouns or active and passive, because you want to get at least 7 marks. The marker will have something like this grid, and it will be completed with the actual words and then words that are written slightly differently. But be careful, don't just go for synonyms, because some of you make a total hash of the synonyms because you don't use them correctly. And of course, synonyms are words with the same or similar meaning. Now, this is where you're going to see how you get your marks, but I want you to look at a specific point here. Don't worry about everything else. If you've quoted verbatim, in other words, you've quoted word for word, then this is the guide that's going to be used. So if you have 3 quotes correct, if you've got 3 points, or even if you have 7, but 3 of them are quotes, this is where your language mark will be. If you have 4 to 5 quotes in your response, remember that can only happen if those are correct facts. They're not going to say, oh, you've quoted everything and now you're going to lose language marks because you haven't quoted a fact. Obviously, if there's no fact, it doesn't influence here. 6 to 7 quotes, you get no language mark. Be careful that you don't throw away your marks when you do this. It's very, very important. Now, this is how it will be marked. I want you to take note that when you get to, you'll see that they are all numbered 1 to 9. And yeah, you see the double line there. The marker is going to count your number of words, and then they are going to indicate it like this. When they've indicated like this, they're telling you that they're only marking up to that point. But there's a wonderful little rule that changes this. And the rule tells them that if the number of words are there, they can mark until the end of that phrase or clause or sentence. So that means that that word will still be considered, or whatever you've written after that. So you could still be awarded a mark for that. Now, I want you to quickly look at the first one. I have a Q there, and that indicates it's a quote, because that is a direct quote. But you're very fortunate if there's one quote, you don't lose any marks on language. As long as you have the 7 facts right, you can still get 7 marks. Quickly look at how the marking has been done. You'll see there's a tick and there's a number in a circle. All that tells you is that is exactly as those facts appear on the memo. And that's so that where the marker doesn't accidentally give you an additional mark that you shouldn't receive. Yeah, is a cross and an R because you've repeated something. You've repeated point number 6. And that is why you have received that. Now you'll notice that here you have, even though this is fact number 8, you have 7 facts that you've been awarded marks for. This one won't be marked at all. It might even get a cross. All it tells you is either it wasn't correct or it wasn't necessary. You already have your 7 facts. So please make sure that you remember this. You are going to get your marks according to what you've presented, and that means what you've written. If you quote directly, you will not get the bonus marks, the language marks. Now, I'm going to let you complete the quiz so that you can see just how well you've paid attention during this lesson. It's stuff we've repeated before, and it's going to help you to do the very best you can. So here is the quiz. You're going to complete the exercise, and that's the link to it, the short link, or you can use the QR code. Remember what I always say, practice makes perfect. So you're going to go and do the very best you can and test yourself. Look at what you need to know, and then you see if you've improved at all, if you've learned anything at all. There is the QR code. I want you to go and try. It's easier to link with the QR code, but if you can't, then you use the short link. And then I want to wish you all the best. Good luck with the quiz and keep safe. Thank you for today's lesson. Bye-bye.